As humans, our lives are full of uncertainties and unanswered questions like, what am I going to eat today? What am I going to wear today? What am I going to do today? What am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do next week? What am I going to do next month? What am I going to do for the holidays? What am I going to do for college? What am I going to do after college? Should I go to the casino and bet it all on black? Maybe. Am I going to even make it to tomorrow? But if we want to get real philosophical with things, are my red shells going to actually work in Mario Kart 64? The Nintendo 64 is home to many wonderful Nintendo games. Some series like Mario Party even started here, while other already existing series got to make the jump to 3D like Mario with Mario 64 and Zelda with The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. When you think of the N64, there are a couple of games that come to mind. The previously mentioned Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time, you got Smash Bros 64, Banjo-Kazooie, GoldenEye 007, Wave Race 64, but Beetle Adventure Racing? There's not a lot I would die for, but this, I would die time and time again for this game and this game alone. But there's one game on the Nintendo 64 that a lot of people have a special place for in their hearts. But before we can get to that, let's hop back to the year 1992. The year when inflation was at 3.01% and the internet only had 10 websites. The same year Super Mario Kart released on the Super Nintendo, a game that threw Mario and crew into, you guessed it, go-karts. Holy crap! And that's how I imagine the average person was when they found out the internet had more than 5 websites. Super Mario Kart was a great introduction to the series. It does the absolute best at showing that Mario could drive a go-kart and it would be fun. The item-filled races is what really sells it, but it was the start to the series and a game from 1992, which means it does have flaws. A lot of the track themes tend to repeat, the controls are way too sensitive, and on the Super Nintendo it's hard to see certain obstacles. About 4 years down the line with the new Nintendo console, it was time to shape the Super Mario Kart formula into the Mario Kart we know today. And that process started with Mario Kart 64.
Welcome to Mario Kart.
With an opening like that, you know you're in for something great. But with Mario Kart 64, you hear a good chunk of mixed opinions nowadays. You get the people who grew up with this game and think it can do no wrong. Or you get the people who just don't get the appeal and say this is one of the worst Mario Kart games. But either way, there's no wrong answer here. Sure, the game has its flaws, but on the other hand, it's incredibly charming. There is a huge difference between this and this. And I don't mean graphics-wise. Playing these two back-to-back, while there are similarities, they feel like two completely different games. Mario Kart 64 obviously being in a 3D environment definitely gives it a step up, but there's a lot that this game changed that stuck with the Mario Kart series for games yet to come. Mario Kart 64 feels like the real beginning of the franchise, while Super Mario Kart feels like the weird friend who asks for milk when you're out drinking. That friend is me, guilty as charged. I probably drank about 3 gallons today alone. I might have a problem, but if I'm out drinking, maybe I'll get a little spicy. Maybe I'll spring for chocolate milk. Yeah, if I'm in the mood, though. But one of the biggest things about Mario Kart 64 was thanks to the 4 controller ports on the console. 4-player local multiplayer. This game was a must-have on the console. Aside from Mario 64, you needed Mario Kart 64. If you owned an N64 and didn't have this game, you're the type of person that scares me.
You wanna play N64?
You got Mario Kart 64?
No.
Never mind. Back in early development for this game, Mario Kart 64 was going to be called Super Mario Kart R. which the R stood for rendered, which I'm gonna be honest, thank goodness they went with the name Mario Kart 64 because I don't think Super Mario Kart R would have been as iconic as Mario Kart 64. I mean, you know there's people out there who would always be like, you guys wanna play Super Mario Kart R? You know the R standing for rendered, so it could have been Super Mario Kart rendered? Just shut up. Oh, okay. So after the wonderful opening, Mario Kart 64 just lets you go. Everything is here right off the bat, but don't take too long trying to decide what you're gonna do because Mario will rush you along. I love this type of stuff. It gives a certain charm to this game. Having Mario narrate the title screen gives this a really fun arcade feeling to it. But once you select how many players are playing and whether you're gonna battle, Grand Prix, time trials, or versus race, you're greeted with the characters select screen. Mario Kart 64 has 8 playable characters: Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, Toad, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, Wario, and Bowser. And honestly, who else could you possibly want? This is the Mario Kart roster. I'm not saying it's better than the other ones, but if I had to reduce the roster to only 8 characters, this is how I would do it. Jumping from Super Mario Kart to this, these choices just make more sense. Super Mario Kart didn't have Wario or Donkey Kong, but instead Donkey Kong Jr. and Koopa Troopa. Now, Donkey Kong Jr., you won't be missed. As for Koopa, you'll get him next time. Kamek was originally planned to be playable and made it rather far into development, but was ultimately scrapped for Donkey Kong. It wouldn't be until 2023 when Kamek would be playable in a Mario Kart game. But now you pick your character and you're ready to race, and I'm happy to report, most of the Mario Kart 64 tracks are iconic and really well designed. You got your classics like Royal Raceway, Calamari Desert, Yoshi Valley, Safer Than a Texas Highway, Canada, Canada again, The View from a Dangerous Texas Highway, Home, Destin, Florida with More Crabs, and Rainbow Road. Among those tracks, you also have one of the worst Mario Kart tracks to ever exist, Banshee Boardwalk, a dark map filled with dark turns, weird bridges, and all-around uncomfortable level design. While it's definitely not as bad as Cheese Land, the worst Mario Kart track of all time, it's still pretty miserable. But altogether, Mario Kart 64 has some great tracks. Its 16 tracks are some of the most memorable across the series, along with its pretty memorable battle mode tracks. In addition to racing and time trials, Mario Kart 64, like all other Mario Karts, has a battle mode. A game mode that throws you and other players into a non-linear battle arena where you and the opposing players duke it out to be the last man standing. It may only have 4 maps, but those 4 are all some great ones. My personal favorite being Big Donut. Honestly, I think Mario Kart 64 might have the most fun battle mode of all the Mario Karts. With the way the items are in this game, it feels much more chaotic, even if you're only playing 2 players. And that brings us to the items. While you got your generic ones here, Mario Kart 64 introduces the blue shell. This item would go on to become the most popular Mario Kart item of all time. But as for the other items, unless you're in an open space or close to another player, the red shells are basically useless and sometimes come back and hit you. Also, for some reason, you can get groups of 5 bananas. I don't know, I kind of think this is fun. I say we bring that back. But that's really all that's notable with the items. Now, Mario Kart 64 is a ton of fun, sure, but this game is far from perfect. For example, well, technically you get a boost for drifting. It's really not noticeable and drifting feels pointless most of the time. Also, the controls are extremely sensitive and it's near impossible to drive in a straight line. Mario Kart 64 also follows the trend that if you place below 4th in a Grand Prix, you're out, disqualified. I mean, sure, it'll be near impossible for me to catch up, but at least give me a chance, right? And this you could take as a good or bad thing, but I don't know what the computer players are on, but they are insane. If you so as fall off the map, they're gone. There's no catching up. But finally, to mention my biggest issue with this game, time trials. In this one, if you mess up slightly, the game won't record your ghost. For example, I was playing DK's Jungle Parkway and I took an off-road shortcut with a mushroom, and if you know the map, it throws coconuts at you when you're off-road, and the coconut hit me and that caused the game not to save my ghost. The coconut didn't stop me or slow me down, but apparently it was enough to kill my run. Mario Kart 64 may have its flaws, but in my opinion, the flaws are heavily overshadowed by the sheer amount of charm this game has. A majority of its tracks are memorable, the races are probably more chaotic than normal, the roster is just what you need it to be, and the battle mode is better than ever. Mario Kart 64 knows what it is and gets straight to the point with it. This game defined what Mario Kart is today. Sure, Super Mario Kart started the series, but Mario Kart 64 mainstreamed it. With the N64's multiplayer being a huge focus, this was the perfect console to drop this game on. And not to mention that a lot of things from this game carry over and are improved upon in later entries in the series. This game is always super fun to return to, and while there may be better Mario Kart games out there, this one definitely is its own special little thing, and for everything it did for the series, it definitely shouldn't go underappreciated. I love Mario Kart 64, and it's definitely one of my favorites in the series. Now that really makes you think, if Mario Kart 64 was so good that it mainstreamed the series, what magnificent game was coming next? Oh, come on!